Professor Shadab.
Yes, hello. Hi, Jason. Human is definitely fine. How are you?
Well, I don't know. I don't like to take privileges to exclude the honorific until invited. So thank you for that. I have been stalking your work on Twitter and LinkedIn for a while, and it really excites me because
great.
You're basically building the future of what we need. So the hardest part of the work that many of us do in innovation is really bringing together the legal practice with kind of the almost the system design practice, like bringing those closer together, and they're like magnets that repel each other. And what I love is that you're flipping it over and you're making them attract, and that so they snap together really well. And a few weeks ago, you floated out something where you basically highlighted these students who are doing this amazing work where they're building solutions. And it kind of blew my mind. I was just like, wow, like it's happening. Like the future is happening right now. And so, of course, I direct message you. And I'm like, hey, so tell me more. What's going on? And you were generous enough to bring some of these folks to talk with us today. So with that, why don't I give you, you can kind of take over and maybe talk a little bit about what you're up to at New York Law School, and then throw it to your peeps, and let's see what they've been up to.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Jason. It's very kind of you. Definitely, it's a very exciting time, I think, to be a lawyer, be a law student, perhaps even, and get really combine law and technology. And I'm so excited, and really, we're all very honored to be here, and really privileged to work with such amazing students as well, who really make this all possible. I'll just go ahead and share my screen for just a few minutes here, just to give you a little bit of an overview of kind of thought process and maybe how we got here at New York Law School and kind of what we're trying to do. And then I'll kick it over to the students that will share their own screens and share their own live demos of their projects and what got them to it. But yes, I'm a professor of law at New York Law School and a director of our Innovation Center. And among other things, what we're really trying to do with Innovation Center, because sort of no code has really unlocked the ability of professionals in law and elsewhere to build solutions, to build apps, all very custom and tailor-made for their pain points and to improve their practice and how they deliver their services and maybe productize them as well. With that opportunity now and potential, technically, we thought it really makes sense to organize it internally and to create a research and development pipeline for legal tech software, legal operations software projects. Not necessarily in a commercialization sense, initially at least, in terms of really trying to do some thoughtful projects and research behind, and even experiments behind what we're building. Because we don't need to act like a venture-backed startup and necessarily do things that immediately scale. We can do things that don't scale and really be thoughtful about what we're building and maybe again, experiment a bit. And we really think that Microsoft Power Platform is just an amazing platform for this, in part because, as lawyers and law students and faculty, we live in Word and Outlook and related Microsoft tools. It's also a great platform because it is very accessible from a no-code and low-code point of view. Very wide range of functionality with the Power Apps and Automate, as you'll see. Excellent self-study tutorials, a really wonderful community that's doing many things in many different areas and use cases. And so that's, all the reasons we thought it would be great to build off of this platform as opposed to others. And really what we're looking to do here and what we've done is really build partnerships with the external world as an academic center, as a law school, obviously with legal departments and law firms and legal tech providers that are increasingly and really amazingly employing technology to provide better legal services for clients is really what we're all about. And so I'm just going to hand it over to the amazing students here to show their demos and give you an idea of what they're building and why they built it and everything. And so I'll just go ahead and hand it off, if that's okay right now, to Joanna to take a look at her application Procure Me. So I just stopped sharing my screen and I'll send it over to Joanna.
Hi, can you all hear me and see me fine? Great. So I'm going to be introducing you to Procure Me, and it's a little tiny solution for a contracting problem that I encountered at work. Some contracts require not only a buyer and a contractor, but then the contractor will involve other parties after execution. We'll call those parties suppliers, subcontractors. And the main contractor, I call him prime. So these parties might be unknown at the time of execution, and that's why the buyer will want to put in place a governance mechanism inside the contract, which is basically language that the contractor will have to be obligated by and follow on how to get approval of these supplier subcontractors for the buyer to have a possibility to vet them, to be able to do its own due diligence on them. So I'm gonna start sharing actually I'm using my phone for this because this is an app that is primarily thought and designed for use on a phone. We all are glued to our phones, and I think that they are great tools. So the app, as I said, is a very small solution, but the problem of doing these approvals and abiding by these governance mechanisms can become really, really burdensome and require a lot of manual tasks, such as emails, exchanging emails back and forth between the buyer and the contractor, as well as tracking all these approvals and having an archive. So I was one of those people making the archive and making sure the supplier matched to the supplier form, and the form that I sent back to my prime contractor was the form for the suppliers they wanted and not someone else. So it can really become tedious, and at least in some occasions it leads to human error. But without further ado, I'm sure you want to see the actual app. So welcome to Procure Me. I will help you get approval for your new supplier subcontractor. So it's super basic. What form do I need to submit? So it explains to you that there are these two forms. Go see the contract at such and such section. If you click on the form, it leads you to the PDF. You can print it from your phone. Many of us now have printers at home. So I'm one of those that actually are for having printers again. And I also wanted to avoid paying for DocuSign. So I'll show you why that's relevant. This is a form I used to use at my job. As you can see, it requires certain information about the supplier, certain signatures.
Because she's.
So once I have my forms, I go back to home and I'm ready to submit. That's my second button. And here's my plus button. I add my supplier, we'll call him Y. I can add an identifier. This could be an EIN, a tax number, it could be an address, whatever is required by contract and is important to have in that database, like readily available. So this is why the app is so cool, because you don't need a developer to change it and to adapt it to your contract language. So as a contract manager, which was my position, I would have been able to adapt it to each contract I drafted. And then, as I said, if I want to not have DocuSign, I can just easily snap a picture, use the photo, and it attaches that document that I already signed. So I printed it, I signed it, and I can submit it. And once it's submitted, it automatically saves it, but it also generates an approval flow. So as you can see for now, the approval here is off. I can modify it if I need it. I can also, of course, delete this record. But what the app will do for me, it will avoid for the contract manager of the prime to have to send these forms via email. Instead, the buyer gets a neat, sorry, I'm a little nervous, gets a neat approval request. I can approve, I can reject. Here I will reject, for instance, and I will say, actually, I'm gonna approve. I feel good today. And I'm gonna say, great job. Confirm. And I'm gonna submit it, which means that the prime now is informed that this was approved. And they can also see that it was approved. See here it's approved, great job. They can also see that in the app, because I want to review the suppliers. I go to supplier Y, let the app refresh, great job. And if I go further, the approval is on. And furthermore, I'm gonna stop sharing this screen. I just wanna real quickly show you what for me was so attractive about this. It is that I was able to actually, to have an archive created for me. Can you see my list?
Yes, it is awesome.
So as a contract manager, order and easy order is what really appealed to me. And this is my stuff in order. So thank you so much. And I look forward to your questions. And by no means this app is perfect. There is a couple of bugs that happen every now and then, and I'm still working on it. And it's a work in progress.
Wow. Are you a software engineer?
I am absolutely not. I am the furthest from a software engineer.
And you made this?
Yes, and actually my boyfriend is a techie. He's in the tech industry, and he was like shocked that I actually made an app and I have a product that I made.
Okay, so you made a fully mobile enabled basically workflow and compliance engine for procurement that moves people, basically moves work through the life cycle. This is crazy. Like, okay. By the way, I believe on the call, I think I saw Jonathan Pyle. So Jonathan does many amazing things. One of them is there's a project called DocAssemble. We integrate DocAssemble, by the way, into some of our workflows. So you could, if you wanted to, you could take the things that he makes and you can make your solution do crazy powerful things. But this is amazing. Like, it's okay. So, all right, I'm going to try to like I'm going to try to calm down a little bit here because it's cool. So as you were thinking about what you were building, were there any specific constraints that you were thinking about for your customer, like the people who would use it, that like you're like, having been through these experiences, I know that doing this or putting it in this way is very important so that people can actually use it?
Yes, for sure. The first concern for me was permissions. And that is part of why it's still a work in progress, because there is a certain amount of permissions that are needed by, so I, as a buyer, I put myself in the shoes of the buyer because I was the buyer in one of the contracts that inspired me. I have the permissions, but I might need to make sure the other party has the permissions, has the necessary, so to download the app, you have to go through, as you know, the Power Apps download, and that requires an account. Most of my big primes, they had Microsoft. So I don't think it would have been an issue in the long run, but that was definitely my primary concern, for them to be able to just access it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do other folks have questions for Joanna? Bo, go, man.
So how long did it take you to build this? Sorry if I missed that. I joined a few minutes late.
This iteration, I was actually hoping Professor Shadab wouldn't kill me, because it was done basically we had a brief presentation last week, and I was like, inspired by my colleagues, I was like, let me work, and it's a drug. So once you go down the rabbit hole, you do like a sprint, and this iteration it was like 10, maybe less, 7 hours. There have been other iterations, but overall, to find the idea was the longest, just to find the small problem that can be addressed, and then from there learning a little bit. So I started learning in September, familiarizing myself. Then the previous iteration was ready in November, and it was a little bit of a moment where I just played with other things. And so it depends where you're talking about, the iteration per se, or you're talking about the full like idea, etc.
Well, it's awesome, and keep at it. Appreciate it. Thanks for sharing.
Let me ask a different version of Bo's question. So you've got 5 months of skills under your belt. If you had to go from 0 to this now, how long do you estimate it would take you? A day, a week, a month?
So I think it's a matter of how willing you're to go into those rabbit holes, because I was an evening student with a full-time job and writing a note for law review, and at the same time, like, everything else. And when I knew that once I started doing it, I would not stop. It's like a drug. So if you're willing to just take the time and just dedicate it to that, I think it could be done in a week.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. Mind blown. Professor, should we move to the next presenter?
Yeah, that would be great. And we're certainly happy to circle back with questions after they're all done as well. And John should be joining us very shortly. And so the next one will be Serene. You're up.
Hi, everyone. Can you see me and hear me? Okay, good. So my name is Serene, and I am very excited to be here. Thank you for having us. This is really exciting. I started working with Professor Shadab on building these apps because I wanted to help find ways to streamline the compliance process in financial services. It involves a lot of paperwork, a lot of record keeping, and I just think that there's ways to automate all this process in order to save time and money. So I built an app that helps address broker-dealers in delivering suitable investment recommendations to their clients. So very generally, I'm sure you all know a broker-dealer is someone who sells securities. So think of stocks, mutual funds, GICs. And when recommending an investment, there are certain guidelines that a broker-dealer must follow. And without an app like mine, there's a lot of human error when going through the process of analyzing a client's risk profile and when recording that information. So keeping that in mind, the problems that my app addresses are, first of all, unethical sales practices of broker-dealers when recommending investments. Typically, some riskier investments will yield higher commissions, so salespeople will be more encouraged to push those investments, but they could be totally unsuitable to the client, and then the client can start an enforcement action or could report the broker-dealer to the regulator. The next problem I'm trying to address is the time-intensive process of collecting and analyzing customer-specific data. And finally, I wanted to find ways to help manage the different kinds of risks in financial services, such as the compliance risk, operation risk, and more importantly, reputation risk. Because if a brokerage is recommending unsuitable investments to their clients and the clients are unhappy and feel like they can't trust their broker dealer, that is not going to encourage other customers to invest their money with that brokerage. And so that's a concern that we need to address. So my app helps reduce all these human mistakes by automating the process of investment recommendation. So I'm going to share my screen now and show you the app, and I'm going to go through the process, and I'll pretend that I'm the customer. So let me share. Can everyone see my screen?
It's coming. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is, I'm gonna play it for you actually. So this is what it would look like on your phone screen. This is just the intro page, and here you can
Hi, Serena. I think we're seeing your slides.
My slides. Okay, let me change that. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, now can you see the FINRA webpage?
Yes.
Okay, and now do you see my app?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Great.
So what I was saying earlier is that if you click on this button here, it brings you directly to the suitability rule. I think it's important to have the actual law connected to the app, and especially in financial services where the laws change often, it's good to have that black letter law as a guidance. So if we start the app here, you go through a series of questions like your age, questions about your investment time horizon, and going through them, you're going to get a score that is then going to categorize you in a certain risk portfolio. So if I go through it, I'll show you the final score we get. Just answering anything. So you get a score. And then 50, so that puts me in the moderate risk category. So these questions that I got assessing a client's risk are from reading the regulation and applying it. So it's helpful to have an attorney. And then you find out what the regulators deem as important when considering a client's risk portfolio and the risk that they're able to handle. And the way I calculated the points was using this formula here, so you could see. So I do not know how to code at all, and even though Microsoft Power Apps is amazing in its ability to have low code, having certain formulas I think can help elevate the app. But these formulas are so accessible to find through different tutorials and either written tutorials or YouTube tutorials. So all of this I was able to program just by talking to people in the Microsoft Apps community and figuring it out. And then here, if you could see with the score, I added a +5, +10, +15, depending on the answer that they gave me. So if you selected 6 to 10 years, you would get a +15 score in comparison to if you select the less than 2 years, here you only get a +5 score. And this formula and the score assessing tool is something that I just came up with that I thought it would be easy for me to follow and to make sense of. So I just decided that the more risky their answer was, then the more points I would associate to their answer. And then I could show you some little features that I did. So these buttons, when you click on next is when it tabulates all of the scores and the calculation that we did. And then if I play back the app here, You can go back and change an answer, which is good to have in a practical sense, because if a broker is asking the clients these questions, client might change their mind and you don't want to have to restart everything. So these are just little features that make a difference when it comes to the actual customer service part. You can also exit if you don't want to do it anymore and come back to it. So if I just go through it again, and now we change the answers a little, so our score is going to be different, which just shows you that it works. Or never mind, it was the same score, so let me start again to show you that it does change. And now, check my score, now it's 60. So I can handle a little bit more risk based on the answer changes that I made. So I'm in 60, I can click here on my category level, and it brings me to a page that gives me an example of a suitable investment portfolio with different types of assets and their percentage. And that's pretty much it for the app. Does anybody have any questions?
Can you show us the data in SharePoint, Serene, as well?
Yes. So what's especially great about it is that every time a client runs through the app, their data is stored here and it's connected through the app. So question 1 here is connected to my screen of question 1 here, and based on the information that they select. So all of this helps sort and analyze the data even further, and it's especially important for broker dealers when they have some record keeping regulations to comply with. And then from here, it's very easy to export to Excel or start a flow with it and perhaps email it to a client.
So as a former securities lawyer, you're making my heart sing, because as a general matter, getting people to follow rules in securities work is hard, basically because they often don't go through gated processes in every instance. And what you've done here is you've created a structure and a framework to, and potentially creating self-service opportunity to walk people through, a process that's going to get you good data. The other thing that you highlighted here, and this also showed up in Joanna's work, you're creating an audit trail, right?
Right.
So you're creating data, and it is observable when the data change, so you know who changed it. And so this ends up being very powerful, not just because of the direct value you're creating, where you're creating a faster approach to better compliance, but you also have that underlay that helps understand like what happened here and when did it happen. And so that is just really powerful. So cool. And again, you're not a software engineer.
I'm not.
Wow.
Just a law student.
More than just a law student. Okay, fine. Do other folks have questions? Wow.
This is Trisha Goddard. I have a question generally about, maybe it's geared to the professor, about the class itself and what it is you're teaching these students. Obviously, they have projects to apply what it is that they've learned. But I think that is the foundation for all of these things. I think a lot of people on this call might be thinking of, 10 or 12 different projects that they have in their own wheelhouse that could be automated like this, but we just lack the skills of being able to understand how some of these tools work. And it seems like you've enabled that.
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. These projects are primarily coming through actually an extracurricular activity through the Innovation Center at New York Law School. But I've worked with these students, most of them in various classes, including commercial transactions, which would dovetail with Joanna's supplier application, financial services law as well. I teach that class. And then certainly we'll see the other one about litigation. So these apps, I have required app making as part of one of my classes on startups and venture capital, and some of our other courses, I believe, students are making apps. But a lot of the subject matter specific issues and expertise is coming from really a wide variety of courses, as well as just their own experiences as interns and externs, and maybe full-time employees as well.
But is there a sort of coursework on utilizing the tools, or are they picking this up through YouTube videos and various other ways of learning how this works?
Yes. Sorry, just to clarify. Yes, this is really on their own outside of the course. Yeah, Microsoft has a great set of tutorials, and all the students are really self-starters and self-learners as well. So really picked it up and done a lot of hard work to figure it out.
Great. All the more impressive. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. And I think if there's please go ahead.
I think I was going to say what you were about to say.
Yeah, for sure. If John wants to go ahead with his, thank you.
So, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so hello guys, my name is John Christopher Lopez, and I am a 2L Evening Division student here at New York Law School. And I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to present my application, the Eviction Case Management Dashboard. So we are going to just try and share my screen so we can see what it looks like. Can you guys see my screen right now?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so just a brief overview of what this does. So first, I would like to do a brief overview of the non-payment eviction process that this app deals with. So first, the law firm gets a potential client, all right? And then the potential client retains the law firm, and the law firm will send a retainer agreement to the client, which the client signs and returns to the law firm. And then after the client has retained the law firm will serve the notice to cure, or which is the predicate notice, which pretty much demands the tenant to cure his default within the time stated in the notice. So if the tenant pays the rent or cures the default, the landlord does not have to start a lawsuit. And then if not, the law firm will then draft the petition and notice of petition and serves both documents to the tenant. The petition is the instrument that starts the lawsuit and contains the allegations against the tenant concerning his default. And included in the petition is the date for the first court appearance. And if the tenant appears and no settlement is achieved, the court may schedule a date for a trial or a second appearance. So the calendar in the office would get a date for the trial, and then the lawyer goes to court eventually. And if no settlement, then they go with the trial, and then after the trial ends, the judge will render a judgment after the trial. And if the landlord won the trial, the judge will render a warrant of eviction, judgment of possession, and/or money judgment.
John, thanks so much for this. Just to clarify, we're seeing still the first screen of your app.
Oh yeah. That's fine. Yeah, I'm still on the process of giving the background of the app.
Thank you so much. Just want to make sure. Brilliant.
Okay, so what does this app, what was the problem that this app is trying to address? So the problem that this app is trying to address is the impending influx of real estate cases that could overwhelm the real estate litigation lawyers once the eviction moratorium has been lifted. And now this could result to missed tasks and extraneous time dealing with administrative tasks like updating case information. So what does my application bring to the table? Well, first, organization. It allows the lawyer to keep track of the client's progress through the eviction process by updating the client's progress within the non-payment eviction process, tracking which client they are currently working on, and making to-do lists for cases. And second, efficiency. So it decreases the time it takes for the lawyer to keep track of his or her client's case by automating the tracking process and automating some of the information gathering process. So now let's go into the app itself. So my app has three main parts: the SharePoint list, and hopefully you can see it, the some flows,
Yep.
and the Power App itself. So the SharePoint list serves as the database of the application, as you can see here. The flows will be the ones that would automate some of the case information gathering process, and the Power App serves as the user interface for the application. So let's look at the dashboard that we can see right here of the application. So it shows the pertinent information of the lawyer, about the case. So we can see the client's name, the client's email, and the status flag, whether the lawyer is currently working on this case, which in John Lopez's case, it's not being worked on right now, and the progress in the non-payment eviction process, which is in this case, John Lopez has retained this law firm, and the number of tasks that this lawyer is about to do for this case, which is 0 for this case. And so let's say we want to work on John Lopez's case, so we can just click on this button right here, and it would automatically update this case's status to being worked on right now. And if we want to, let's say, create a new task for John Lopez's case, and we could see here that we have a couple of tasks already done for this case. So let's just create a new one right now. Let's click on this. Oh, there was a delay. I'm sorry about that. So, all right. So we're just gonna say John Lopez, and let's say trial. Go to trial. Okay, and then click on this. So we could see that it already created a new task for this case, and this actually goes to the SharePoint list. As you can see right here, it already created a new item on the list without us actually manually doing that. So another fun thing about this application is the automating process of gathering case information. So let's say the law firm has a potential client, and this flow would automate the internal process where a paralegal or another lawyer in the firm emails case information of a potential client to the user of this application. So usually this flow takes around 2 to 3 minutes to take effect, but since we really don't have the luxury right now, I will just manually trigger that action. So let's do that, and I actually have a test email right here, and so let's try to send that. So once the lawyer gets an email in his inbox with a certain keyword, and in this case, it's going to be potential client, the flow gets the email data through an API, which is then parsed into usable data that triggers an item creation in the SharePoint list. So it says it ran successfully. And if we look into our list, we can see that Dale RB is automatically created in this list. And if we look into our app, we can see that Dale RB is right there. Great, we didn't have to manually create that through SharePoint. It was done automatically just by email correspondences, basically. So let's say Sterling Archer wanted to retain our law firm. So all he has to do is send the signed retainer agreement back to the lawyer. And we can do that right now through this. So let's send it. Actually, we have to start the flow first, right here. Test, so manually test it. All right. So hopefully I was able to do that beforehand and see it's running.
Y'all are fearless. I am, like, as somebody who has to do live demos on occasion, like Joanna, Serene, John, like y'all are fearless. Bravo.
Well, this is just something that I have to do, I guess. But before I actually presented this application, I was working on my 2012 Mac Mini, and it wasn't able to handle sharing the screen, so I had to get my other laptop just to present today. So hopefully this really works without any kinks. So, but beside the point. So let's go back to the application, and we just send out the email basically that will update the status of the case of Sterling Archer from potential client to the client retaining the law firm. So let's update the app right now. So we could see right there that the status of the case has now been updated to client retained without us doing manual updating of that case's information. So I think one last flow that I have for this. Sorry about this. I had it before. Notice secure. All right. So this one. So for example, Sterling Archer wanted to go through with the lawsuit. So all he has to do is to start that lawsuit is to send the predicate notice that basically demands the tenant for the default or for the rent because the tenant defaulted. So let's do that right now. So here before, the law firm would have to draft this demand letter or the predicate notice to be sent to the client. And then after the client had signed the demand letter or the predicate notice, it would be served to the tenant, basically. So let's do that right now. Manually test. All right. So let's do that. Okay. Hopefully it works. All right, so it's spinning. It might take a while. Well, hopefully it won't take that much time. If it's still spinning. So basically, like the earlier flows that I just showed to you guys, what it does is it would basically get the email data from the inbox, and then it would automatically update the case information in the SharePoint list to update the status of that case, basically. So it said it ran successfully. If we go to the list, it would update the progress of Sterling Archer to notice to cure. So if we update this application, you can see that Sterling Archer's progress has now been updated to notice to cure. And I think one last part of this application is, for example, we want to manually update the case information. It actually does that as well. So let's say we want to increase the rent of Sterling Archer to maybe, I don't know, $1,200. And then just click that, and now the rent has been increased to $1,200. So as far as the functionality goes, I think that is all I have. But what I want to do as maybe an additional function to this application is maybe implement AI to gather information from email correspondences to have better accuracy and efficiency in obtaining information. Because right now, one drawback of the current application is that it requires keywords for the flows to work. So basically, if, for example, the lawyer forgets to put demand letter in the subject heading or the subject of the email, the flow will not work. And so I would like to have it automatically done through AI to have basically more accurate reading of the information, and it's going to be more efficient. And one more thing that I wanted to have in this application is maybe an integration with document signing applications like DocuSign, again, for better accuracy with the tracking process. And lastly, I think an integration with other client matter management systems would be a good step forward for this application. So I think that is all I have for you guys today, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation. So let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Mind blown. I I'm gonna steal Bo's question. How long did it take you to make this?
Well, I think the most time-consuming part of developing this application is the planning process, and I think 80% of the development is actually that part of the process, and maybe only 15% of the development process is actually allocated to actually developing the application, while 5% is testing and like working on the bugs of the application. So I would say around roughly 20 hours, give or take, is what I had to put out to make this application with all the flows. But an additional disclaimer, I actually have some programming experience. I work as an e-learning systems analyst for Old Dominion University. So I do have a bit of, I guess, advantage over some of my colleagues here because I actually have some programming experience. So I know, well, it's not really that much of an advantage because Microsoft gives a bunch of functions and tutorials out there, and it basically made it really, really nice and easy for me to basically learn a new language in maybe a week of time. Like that's really impressive.
We do not regard the ability to write software as cheating here, John. It's okay. Wow. So I have some observations, but I want to give other folks a chance to jump in with any questions they have. But I can't tell if your hand is up new or if it's
It's new. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Get in there, man.
So this is more for the professor, but so you're teaching everyone how to build apps and do this stuff. Are you helping them kind of think about how to navigate the law firm, like IT world once they get to a law firm, especially big firms? It's painful for people to get access to these tools that they're using. A lot of the large law firms probably have access to this stuff, but just wondering if you're like teaching them how to advocate for themselves and how to go about doing that, because it's going to be painful once they get in the real world, I think.
Yeah, thanks for that. Certainly implementation of these types of tools and platforms that they make is something we think about and something we're looking to maybe partner with outside organizations with. But yeah, certainly, one reason we chose the Power Platform is at least that's a starting point where most, even smaller law firms will have some access to Outlook and certainly Word as well. But I think we are also under no illusions that any organization they work for after they graduate will necessarily let them or even have the ability to start to build these apps to do the work. So that's a great point, though. That's something more we do need to think about as well, and how to really push this for them to push it after they graduate in their job settings.
Thanks. I mean, I think it would be a great thing for them to kind of just start thinking about, like, who do you find in the labyrinth of IT departments that can grant you access to this stuff. It's hard. At Fish, we allow everyone access to this. We just don't tell them about it necessarily.
Okay. Right. Yep. Shadow IT.
Perhaps all the more reason why they should consider in-house, because in-house legal departments will probably let you do whatever you want because they can't get the IT resources allocated to them to do what they need to do.
Fair point. Or go to a good firm.
Amy Monahan.
Hi, I would say don't jade these fine young people ahead of pursuing these
Fair
skills
enough.
in the real world. I mean, that stuff does exist. It's certainly fair to let you know there will be some challenges if this is something that you want to pursue. But I would say put that in the very, very back of your brain for now, because firms and organizations that have those structures in place need people like you to break those walls down. So keep going. And just another comment that I'm just incredibly impressed with what you've come up with. And I am curious if this is something that you all are interested in pursuing post-law school. Are you hoping to kind of merge this legal technology with practice? Like, what are you thinking about your careers at this point?
No pressure.
No pressure. Yeah.
And
I can maybe address this. The partner that, let's say, is gonna be was my mentor partner in my summer associate program last summer, and then he's gonna be my mentor when I start working after graduation. Is very fond of technology. He himself spearheaded a lot of technological changes within the firm before I even was hired. So I think it's actually coming faster than you think, if I may, and it's confirmed by the fact that my current externship at the AG, I was asked to I was given an email for a daily check whether or not I have COVID, right? And I was like, I'm not going to the office, but let me see what this is. I guess I have to do it. I'm new. I'll check. And it was obviously a power app. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that was coming from IT. Right. If it's a power app with 2 buttons, that's coming from legal. I don't know. So I think it's coming faster, and knowing these things and showing that you have these skills is for the next generation. Professor Shadab recently posted an article. It's so crucial. It's just that it seems so different from the type of mentality we as lawyers taught to have, but it's just required. I think at this point it's gonna come faster and faster towards us.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree with you.
Candy Smith.
Well, hello, everyone. And I wanted to commend the professor for an excellent job with the students. I think that that this is amazing. I wish that they would have had a professor teaching them e-discovery earlier when we had those issues. But I think what's great about this is it's kind of like, high school math sometimes, where you never have to use it again later on, but you learn it in school. But you still have the concept down. And I think this is valuable. I'm in-house now, but I've been in law firms for like 25 years. So I think it's valuable now to be able to communicate with the person who will be later on maybe even developing or getting your ideas out into that person. The IT in-house is, somebody has said something about IT in-house or something, and yeah, I have to create my own Power Apps or my flows or my anything that I want to do. I have to create my own as well, and sometimes I shaking my head going, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be the owner of this app, but you will find yourself thinking, at least, if anything, forget the Power App really, but thinking about innovation and how to work smarter and not harder. So I think this is great. I think the professor is on to more than just Power Apps. It's psychological. It's a great opportunity for them to learn how to navigate, like Bo was saying, within the IT, talk IT a little bit and kind of get their idea out there. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. Appreciate it.
Well said. Jason Broughton.
Hey, yeah, just a point of clarification and then a question. So in the demonstrations, the apps, are these being developed for you to use only, or for other people to use, other attorneys? Anyone can answer.
So speaking for all of them, they are being developed initially, at least, for kind of academic skills building and experiential purposes. And then I think each of them, I suspect, would like to use them in practice and maybe make some money on the side if they could, but I'll let them speak for themselves.
Yeah.
For me, my app would be used by broker-dealers and their clients. My app is kind of a two-way street, and the first way is that it lets broker-dealers, as we were talking about before, make a record of everything so that if they are dealing with an enforcement action and they're being charged with selling the wrong investment, they can go back and have this record of questions and answered and say, hey, based on this information, we actually advise them on the appropriate investment. But on the other side, it's also good for clients because it helps them realize what risk they can handle. Sometimes the client will say, yeah, like I'm comfortable with the riskiest investment. And then they go through these questions and they realize they need their money in 2 years, or they don't want to risk losing 5% of their money. And so it's not to be used by attorneys, but the attorneys and the IT together help take the appropriate regulation, understand it, apply it, and then automate this whole process.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I guess my feedback would be just to, and by the way, I'm a designer. I don't have a legal background. I work at a legal company, but I'm a designer. And my advice is to just show this to as many people as possible to get feedback, and that could be feedback on usability of the app, or it could be just understanding the value or willingness to pay if that's what you're looking for. And yeah, don't be shy about that, because every piece of feedback will help you refine the application. And I don't know how much your professors talked about user experience and design, but that's also a critical piece, as a lot of legal software that I'm sure you've used is overly complicated, and we need to work to make it simple. And that would be my advice. Thank you. This is great, by the way.
Great insights brought from our expert community. I just had a few things that y'all triggered in me that I wanted to just get out of my head really quickly. So one, just highlighting for the larger community, everything that these folks showed today is part of the M365 stack. So if you're a Microsoft customer, you have access to these toys. And as Bo noted, your IT department mileage may vary, but this is just built into the stack. And so depending on how, what's enabled, your citizen developers can go after these scenarios now. We also saw a couple things. So I think John had a good example of a place where I would consider dropping in a cognitive service. So he was doing pattern matching on the email intake on the name, but with a little bit of so we use Q&A Maker, and we basically hack it to do what he was talking about, to effectively recognize patterns, because it turns out, people are messy and sometimes they get the colon in the wrong place. And what he was saying as a next step is very addressable. And we have some examples in legal operations technical sharing community where we've actually shown how we've wired that inline into automations like he built. Another thing that came to mind is document generation. So what in most of these instances, what they're doing is they're creating this structured intake process. And so they showed the SharePoint lists. Well, one of the cool things that you can do with tools like Power Automate is you can take a Word document and make it a template, and you can emit a conformed version. So you can take all that good data and you can basically fill it in and push it out. You can also connect to other services like DocAssemble to do super crazy, hardcore, complicated things. So there's a whole lot of kind of next step things that could be built onto each of these applications that creates even more power to generate artifacts. And I think the last thing that came to mind for me was each of these is a very powerful example of meeting people where they are and embracing that the cognitive load on us is very high. And so what they created were these very tailored experiences that allowed people to get things done. And in the end, let's be honest, technology is wonderful, but people need to get stuff done. And so what I saw was a very laser-like focus on that, and that was really impressive. Clearly you thought about what does my customer need? You didn't overburden people with too many bells and whistles, and that kind of discipline is surprisingly rare. So I literally have goosebumps. I wish they don't come through on video, but I have goosebumps. And you have energized me. I think the future is brighter because of what y'all are doing. Professor, before we bounce, any final words you want to offer us?
Yeah, just to thank you all for that feedback. thank you for this opportunity. Thanks to the students and everybody. This is a really exciting time, I think, for us. The technology has unlocked some amazing things that are possible for lawyers and law students. We're certainly progressing forward with more students and more apps. And so if anyone wants to work with us or just even provide informal feedback or advice, it's always appreciated. I, for one, am looking how to automate exam grading as the holy grail on my end. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, this has been great. And I know the students will continue to work on their apps to some extent, but it's been a really great experience. And for them, I hope, and we really are just getting started and with this technology, and we hope to continue to keep in touch with this group as well and learn from it and also contribute where we can.
Well said. Joanna, Serene, John, y'all are awesome. Go be great. And like, know that like we're behind you. Like, we're just excited. So what a great start to my day. All right, y'all. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.